My name is Gil Robertson. I am the president of the African American Film Critics Association, and we welcome you today to a roundtable that's going to put a spotlight on Sherman Shwocase and let people know that this has become the thing to watch. I'm going to start off by introducing our members with Katia to my left from Philadelphia.
Hi.
Rhonda Penrice, a native of Chicago, who currently lives in Atlanta. Am I right?
ATL.
And Al McGee in South Florida.
Hello.
Hey, Al. What up, Al?
And Ray Cornelius in Atlanta as well.
That's what's up. Hey, can I just say I was DJing online last night. We had a bunch of people. We had 11,000 people watching a DJ set, which would be a huge nightclub. But spin the music of Sherman Shwocase. Lil Jon came in, and I wasn't sure if it was the real Lil Jon. So I was like, this guy says he's Lil Jon, but I think I used a certain expletive. And I said that about Douglas High School, and then of course he weighed in very strong, and I was like, "Oh, that actually is Lil Jon." So Atlanta, we take our high schools very seriously. If you grew up in the city, so shout out to Atlanta for sure.
That's good. And we also have the voice of God on the phone, Ed Adams, who's handling our board. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and kick it over to the members.
Well, I'll kick it off with why did you guys decide to do Black History, Sherman Shwocase, Juneteenth, all of that?
We didn't intend on it. For real, we actually intended for this to come out in February.
It's true.
We were doing a Black History Month special. And the network was like, they're like, guys, our schedule is very packed right now. Can we move your Black History Month special to June? And we knew we didn't really have the power to say no, so we actually just were like, okay, that's fine, but you have to call it the Black History Month Spectacular in June. We thought that was going to be sort of like the hook, the angle of it. And then lo and behold, the pandemic breaks out, the protests, the demonstrations. I feel like, in a weird way, the universe was looking out for us, because now is when we actually need the Black History Month Spectacular. You know what I'm saying? And let me not overstate the educational element of the show. We do have, a little bit of Mary McLeod Bethune and George Washington Carver and all those names that you hear once a year when Black History Month rolls around. But we are still, first and foremost, an entertainment show, which I think is okay.
I think, look, we feel very blessed that that the thing that we're competent in, the thing that we've been educating ourselves in and getting our vocation in, has been comedy. We have between us dozens and dozens of years, starting from way back when we were doing sketch comedy shows in little theaters with 5 people in the audience, up through, working for some of the biggest names in Hollywood, some of the biggest names on the planet, but then also the more important thing of finally having an opportunity to create something that was our own, that we could be proud of. I think that, I have always felt like the Black experience is different from person to person. And I've never felt like that was truly reflected, particularly in non-Black TV shows and movies. There always seems to be a Black point of view, often that is characterized by a Black character who then has to become a catch-all for all things Black. In my experience, I'm from Chicago, Diallo's from Atlanta. One of the things we bonded over is that we were the 2 guys who loved The Simpsons, and we loved Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and we loved The Muppet Show, and we love all this sort of crazy stuff, and we weren't the only kids who did. And so for us, Sherman Shwocase is also, to some degree, a fulfillment of the people in our community who realize, I can't be put in a box. I have so many disparate interests. There are so many different things that I like. I love talking to fans and asking them what their other favorite shows are. I never get the same answers. I never get the answers that Hollywood thinks. And so with this Black History Month Spectacular, I'm really excited that we get to do it. First of all, I'm happy we get to do it at all. Second of all, I'm happy that it's in June because, it's tied to Juneteenth, which is a holiday that, embarrassingly enough, growing up on the South Side, I never heard about. I didn't hear about Juneteenth till I got to college. And then I was like, yeah, that needs to be a national holiday, emancipation, et cetera. But I had heard from some friends from Texas that they celebrated it, and I was educated about it. But, fast forwarding to today, the idea that we get to put out a piece of content that not only understands, our different points of view and has, fun with Black culture and Black music. And we do deep dives. We have this great sketch that takes place in the Harlem Renaissance that I think nobody's going to see coming, where we actually get really kind of real deep in the woods of like 1920s Black personalities. So just the ability to do something that can feature all of that, I think we just feel incredibly blessed. And again, we intended to do it in February, but we don't have the kind of power where we can sort of say when it's going to happen. And frankly, I'm happy it's happening right now.
Okay. My name is Al McGee. That was great. The 2 episodes that I saw, they were very funny. But the 3 funniest moments for me was the Kente Club, That Ain't Right, that parody with James Brown, and the Terrence Howard contract for Iron Man. I bust up. So how do y'all come up with these ideas and then decide what you're going to put in? Because that's a whole lot in there.
So Bashir and I both come from big Black families.
True.
And when we get our writer rooms together, we kind of try to duplicate that Black family. Like, we just try and get like some of the funniest Black writers that we can. And we just sit around and we try and figure out like what makes a room full of 8 to 10 Black people laugh. And that's honestly why I feel like our humor is what it is, because it's pure. It's just that feeling like when you're at the dinner table and everybody's, Black and trying to make each other laugh. Like, I think that's, the point of view that we really come from. And with, for example, you bring up, our character, Jackie Redmond, who's supposed to kind of stand in for James Brown, like as a Black person, like we're often reminded that this is the man who made, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, But then when you look at James Brown in the 80s, he's doing Living in America and he's wearing like the USA coat and all this kind of crazy stuff. And you're like, how's that the same dude? Like he's kicking Ronald Reagan. Like you're just like, so on our show, we try to duplicate that. When you see Jackie Redmond in the 70s, he's like very pro-Black. He's got an all-Black band. When you see Jackie Redmond in the current day, his band is entirely white. They got on like light blue suits. And it seems like Jackie's missing a step. It just seems like something changed in that intervening 30 years. Sort of the same way with Prince. On our show, our character Charade is sort of a stand-in for Prince. Mm-hmm. And in the 80s, like you can tell Charade just has the country, enwrapped in his vision of what cool is. And then when you see him in the hip hop era of like the 1990s, like suddenly like people who can't play an instrument, people who, and by the way, I love rap, so obviously, but like, you just get the sense that like Charade, AKA Prince, is like looking around like, what happened? Like I play 27 instruments, I arrange this music that's like musically complex, and this dude just rapped the alphabet and he's more popular than me. Like, it's just the changing of the times. And that's a little bit why like Sherman Shwocase, even when it's not the Black History special, is kind of like Black history summed up, because we're always talking about like changes and patterns over time and how, our people just, we like something, then we move on from it.
We move on quick. We move on quick.
Yeah, we move on quick. There's nothing more lame than like that white friend of yours who's like, hey, let's go to a blues club. You're like, blues? I ain't my grandfather. Like, I ain't like my I'm not my ancestors. I don't want to go to a blues club with you. Sorry. Like,
but I think moved on from blues. If I could jump in on the music side, I think the other thing that I'm so proud of is like, we take the music so seriously. We really try to treat the music as life or death. I mean, we have ideas for melody sometimes. We have a lot of ideas with the writers for songs, but there's always this level where we go to an actual musician. For example, with That Ain't Right, Fonte Coleman, who was in this group called Little Brother in the Foreign Exchange, he's from North Carolina, really, really great guy, and also really gets the joke. We've been meaning to collaborate with him for years, and he ended up doing a lot of our music. He's a professional musician, and what I love about the James Brown song is he's such a fan of James Brown that he tried to make sure that song had both the distinctness so that it wasn't copying, but it also has so many little touches that James would do. And we actually, we have a really kind of a aggressive process for people to sing on our show. We really want to make sure we're always going for the best. And that was one of those cases where he sent us the demo in, and usually we would just, then give it to a comedy person or some celebrity. And we were talking, we were like, yo, this is not only a great song, but this is
I was
also
like,
one
Fonte killed it. Fonte killed that.
It's a kick-ass audition. And we were like, you know what? He's that guy, period.
Right.
This song doesn't need to be touched by anybody else. And I'm really grateful that an actual musician got to sing it, because he understands where that line is between imitation and in between, you know, something that's creative and new. And he's on it. And I think the audience is better for having watched that. But even specifically with the Add Some Kente piece, like, there's a house music DJ. Is it a DJ or a collective?
Yeah, his name is Viceroy, and he was a house music remixer, more so like in the early 2010s. Like, you know, he had a lot of remixes come out between like 2009 and 2014, and I just knew him from my own DJing, just, you know, DJs knowing each other. And I was like, hey man, can you give us a house track? Because like in season 1 of Sherman's, like we never did house music, and I feel like
I'm from Chicago, which feels like, how are we not doing house music?
Yeah, like black people in Chicago and Detroit know about electronic and dance music more than where I'm from, where like the closest thing we got was like, you know, Miami booty music, you know, to be frank. Like, you know, we got the 2 Live Crew and the Uncle Luke and all that kind of stuff. But
95 South.
95 South and this and that. We can go on and on about this.
Yang.
Shouty Swing My Way. You know, that's the culture that I'm from. But at the same time, like we talked to Viceroy, we were like, we want like an early 90s house music, like inner cities, good life. Give us something like that. And he came back with something. And at the same time, Bashir's sister came to us with a melody for a song that she wanted to do for a house track. We merged the two, and that gave us Add Some Kente, which again, like, you know, every black person I know, you know, at least has access to, or, you know, knows somebody with some Kente cloth. And we wrote a song about it, but we had no idea. We had no idea that the Democrats in the House of Representatives were going to do that last week. And so people were like, "Did y'all do that song?" Like the second y'all saw the video of like Pelosi and some Kente, we were like, "No," because black people know about Kente, and we feel like in some ways the culture has come around to what black people are into. We're not going off and like doing what they're into. They're coming after us. So that was good timing.
What's up, Diallo? This is Ray Cornelius again from Atlanta. We actually met a couple of years ago.
I know. I was going to say.
Yeah, for the Marlins piece.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good to meet you.
I still talk to Marlon and all those guys every day. Like the Marlon cast is still really good friends. We stay close.
I wanted to know how much of what we see is scripted and how much of it is actually ad-lib. I mean, you know, when you're doing comedy, a lot of times you can do what's written, but then you may be led to kind of go a whole nother way. So how much of it is actually scripted and what is ad-lib?
With our show, you know, it's mostly written. It's mostly written from this robust writer room. And I think that, you know, I do a lot of acting as well. I love to get a script that feels really, really close, so that when I'm on set, I'll do some improv, but like, I'm like, this script is so good. And I think we've been able to give our guest cast and our actors that, give them something that when they read it, they go, oh, this is already really funny. And it feels like it already has that sort of like unexpected vibe that you get when you're improvising baked into the material. And now it just gives them more, you know, of a stage to stand on, and then add a little bit more to that. But they don't have to do all the work. And I think a lot of actors really don't like that when they go somewhere and they read a script and go, well, I'm going to have to rewrite this from scratch pretty much once they action.
I was just going to add to that, just that everything he says is true. Like, we go out of our way to really write the script as well as we can, as opposed to a lot of shows, because Bashir and I, like you said, we do a lot of acting, and a lot of shows will just be all improv, and like the script is totally a general guideline. Sherman Shwocase is a little bit more like almost like a Wes Anderson film, in the sense that like what you see is probably what was scripted, you know, to within a few words of the line, because it's so absurd what's going on camera that if it wasn't scripted, it wouldn't make any sense. So we kind of stick to the script. Also, there's just the functionality, and this gets into the filmmaker side of the thing. You know, we shoot an episode of Sherman Shwocase usually in 2.5 days. You know, like that's all the time we got from a financial.
That's all the money. That's all the money we got.
That's all the money we have. So we don't have a whole lot of time. We can't do the Judd Apatow thing where like you just shoot like 30 hours and you cut it down to 2.5. Like, no, if the episode is 30 minutes, you know, like we probably shot like 35 minutes. So,
you know, Jordan was somebody we worked with. We got the chance to talk to him about Get Out, and he was saying that because they had a low budget, they don't have a lot of time to do a lot of takes. And so it requires him to be really, really prepared before he shows up on set. He's got to really have it together. And I think for Sherman Showcase, we kind of took that to heart. We really tried to over-prepare because we knew that, especially with some guest casts and with the timing and the budget we had, we just weren't going to be able to live in things for a very long time. Like Diallo said, we do full episode in like 2.5 days, which is unheard of. But, you know, luckily our experience allowed us to prepare for that.
Outstanding. Hi, guys. I'm Kathy out of Philadelphia. My question to you was, obviously an influence for the show was Soul Train, but I see a lot of people are not familiar with the variety shows of the 70s, especially like my daughter's generation. What shows did you watch as kids, or what memories do you have from like the 70s to be like, okay, this is something that I really love, and that's what I wanted to kind of incorporate in the show?
Well, I'll say that we were born in the late 70s, so we don't really have memories of that. But at one point, like around 2008, before I was married with kids, I got like really into like weird variety shows. I had no idea that we would end up working for Jimmy Fallon and the Tonight Show, but like the weird shows like the Midnight Special.
Yeah.
Which was like this show where like sometimes they bring on a comedian, sometimes it would just be like, you know, the Gap Band on like a round circular stage with like all the kids circle, you know, around them. And I would watch these DVDs for hours, and I would share them with Bashir. And then at some point we actually tried to, ironically, we tried to develop a show very much like Sherman Showcase for TBS, because at the time they had an executive there who really liked our material from YouTube, because we had done things like Condi Rice raps and like all these like weird YouTube videos at the time. They gotten like millions of views, back when millions of views were enough to get you an interview at a network.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very much that show, which I think we called it like the Midnight Hour or something like that. That
Mm-hmm.
show was very much like Midnight Special. But fast forward to our time at Jimmy Fallon, we were like on stage, like, you know, singing, making our jokes and whatever. And we were like, yo, if we could do this every day as a career, this would be a very exciting show that we could do, and we could make it more edgy than NBC or Jimmy Fallon would ever be. So like that was the beginning of the idea of Sherman Showcase. And we only took this idea one place. We only took it to IFC, because IFC seemed like the kind of network that would put on a show that was as weird and quirky as Sherman Showcase, because it's hard as a Black creator to come in quirky. Like usually executives try and steer you towards, well, we want to know what, you know, we want to know about the pain and the hurt.
This is like, they'd be like, you know, this character doesn't cry at all in the pilot. I don't know. Is that,
they're like, we're missing that scene where like he's looking out the window at the urban decay, and he's like,
you know, can I say something? I'm going to say something. I don't know if it's controversial, but it's something I've come to, because I was working on this project a while back with this one producer, and he kept trying to push it to be more emotionally gripping.
Say his name.
No, I won't.
Don't say his name.
But luckily, the star of the show, who's Black, was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I just had this thought one night when I was like in the middle of this argument. I was like, "There are some people, some white folks, and some executives specifically. I feel like they're just addicted to our pain in a way. Like they just need to see it, or they feel like they're not having a visceral enough experience. They need to see us go through stuff, you know. Like, and I just feel like it's not really fair to us." Because of our diversity as a people, some of us will write poignant stuff. You know, you are going to get the Ava DuVernays who are going to write stuff that make you sit on the edge of your seat and go, oh my God, that blew my mind. But you're also going to get other folks. You're going to get the Marlon Wayanses, and you're going to get all points in between. And I think that it's okay as Black people that we come from all these different perspectives. And I think the issue that I'm talking about specifically is that even though we all come from all these different perspectives, you still might, when you go to sell it, when you go to deal with the executives, hit somebody who's not interested in a perspective that doesn't look like, in some ways, almost like you know, like a torture porn kind of vibe, where it's like, well, I want to see somebody Black really going through some stuff. And it's like, we should be allowed to make everything we want to make. We want to make stuff like that. We want to make light stuff. And I'm really happy that Diallo and I try to stay in our lane in this way. Our lane right now is we want to make the kind of stuff right now when folks come home from a hard day of work and a hard day of dealing with poignant shit out in the streets, that we give them this little oasis where they can enjoy themselves, they can sit with their families, and they can have some stuff to laugh together about and commune together about, because that's how we grew up. You know, he's from Southwest Atlanta. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. It wasn't like we grew up seeing like easy stuff all the time and nothing bad ever happened. But for both of us, there are so many beautiful moments when we come in the house and the family is together, gathered around, that are special. And in those moments, we uplift each other and we heal each other and we laugh together. And our show can do that. And I think that's important.
Nope.
I concur. I concur 100%. Thank you.
Well, speaking of that, give us the scoop on Southside. Like, is it coming back? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. Thank you very much for asking. Southside is, it's a show that Diallo and I also executive produce. Being raised in Chicago, I felt like, between all the Dick Wolf shows and, other shows, that the difficult parts of Chicago, the challenging parts of Chicago were well covered and they were being spoken about. But what I wasn't seeing was, like, when I get off the plane at O'Hare and then me and the guy who drives the transport to the rental car start making jokes, right? I wasn't seeing that. I wasn't seeing that type of Chicago, that like down home, people who don't know you will come up to you and talk about your shoes, or people who don't know you. And in my neighborhood, people might bring you some food their grandmother made. I just wasn't seeing that side of my experience. And so for us, Southside was a chance to live in the more joyous, more uplifting side of the experience, which is also there. And so we were actually about a month and a half from going to Chicago to shoot season 2 when all of a sudden everything started shutting down. I mean, I'll never forget, we were at Viacom because it's on Comedy Central, and we were in one meeting with the writers punching up one of the scripts. And it's actually, this is the worst part of you Chicago people. We wrote a whole episode around Bud Billiken. We were going to do a whole Bud Billiken parade episode where we go to the parade, and I don't want to, maybe we might still do it, even though I don't know when we're going to shoot it. But one of the characters has an entire journey, and the city of Chicago was so cool. They were like, okay, we got you permits. You can come shoot in the parade. We're going to have you guys walk in the parade. You can have a Comedy Central that we bust our ass for this thing, right? Comedy Central made us a float. We were going to have a RTO float in the parade and blah, 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 blah. And for those of you not familiar with Southside, at its core is this idea that there are so many structural impediments to characters, but because of the ingenuity and intelligence of our characters, they still find a way to thrive, and they don't let these things kind of hold them back, and they still find a way to be entrepreneurial, and they still find a way to support their kids, et cetera. So we had all this stuff going, and it was all great. And then we were at CBS, Viacom, and they were like, hey guys, so just FYI, the building's probably gonna be closed tomorrow. And I remember when I heard that, I was like, damn, we're not gonna shoot Bud Billiken. And here we are. So
I'll take it a step further. We have a whole episode in season 2 of Southside where all of our principal characters and most of the ancillary characters are all in a basement because there's a tornado watch. And the idea of like 25 actors in a super small space.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be rewritten.
I think that's gonna have to we're gonna have to revisit that scene. We had written the entire second season of the show.
Yep.
And let's just be honest. Like, I'm not gonna let all the secrets out of the bed, Bashir. Don't worry. Like a lot of these media companies have taken COVID as a chance to sort of back out of their previous commitments. So for a while, we were like, are we even going to be able?
Yep.
Are we going to be allowed to shoot season 2? We recently got information that says, yes, we're definitely going to shoot season 2.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
And there's actually some big news about season 2 that we aren't allowed to say. But at the point that we're able to shoot it, we'll be able to shoot it. So Southside's going to come back. And, like we had actually had the chance to do a show about Atlanta that was in some ways similar for HBO. And at some point, HBO decided that they knew more about Black people than we did. Very sore subject in our past. And I think that they corrected themselves because they then redirected their ship and they did Insecure, which is obviously an amazing show and a part of the culture. But we do feel a certain way that HBO like slammed the brakes on our project. So, I always feel like we didn't get to do Atlanta, but we got to do Chicago. And like Bashir said, like these are neighborhoods, and there are neighborhoods in Atlanta and Chicago that get an entirely bad rap from politicians who've never been there.
And when we go there, we like the reason it didn't feel like a total turn to go from Atlanta to Chicago is because when I'm in Atlanta, when Diallo takes me to Southwest Atlanta, and we go on Cascade, and he's showing me around, and all this stuff, I'm like, I feel a similar vibe to when I'm down on Stony Island. And so for me, it did feel like, luckily in our experience, there's enough of an overlap where the language we're creating and the motifs we're creating do translate. So whether you're from, Atlanta, DC, Philly, Oakland, these places, I mean, no matter, if you're from the suburbs or something like that, that's beautiful. And I think the show will still make you laugh. But if you are from one of these places that I just named where we're from, I think there's also a deeper level in there, and we're really proud about that. We're proud about like the detail. I remember like people from Chicago watching Southside were like, I don't believe they just did a whole run on Chicago high schools, or they did a whole run about the streets on 69th Street, you know, and I love that we were able to be so specific like that and still make people from all over, you know, just laugh their butts off.
Yep.
Oh, wait. Well, you know, in Chicago, we super hard. So it's like amazing to get a show where people from Chicago is like, yeah, that's it. And I also wanted to say, I put Billiken Day Parade in my book, African American History for Dummies, because, you know.
Yeah.
So we hope 2021.
I want to see it. I want to shoot it.
We hope 2021 will be back shooting and airing. That's the goal.
I think people should see that. You know, I want to do something with the Chosen Few, which is just like gigantic. I consider Chosen Few almost like the yearly high school reunion because everybody's out there. And this is the sign that I'm getting older. I saw a dude walking out there with a cane and an Omega Sci-Fi jacket, and I'm like, man, I was like, I probably wasn't in school much past this person. So I guess our whole generation is obviously getting older, which is cool. But what I like about the Chosen Few is that you just have all these people out here listening to house music, dancing, vibing, in some ways reliving the glory days when we used to go to basement parties and go to the warehouse and all that stuff. And it's like nothing else on the planet, and I don't think anybody's ever seen it. So I'm really excited to show stuff like that.
Yeah, we're trying to get Mayor Lori Lightfoot in season 2. We got a couple of scenes written for her. A couple of scenes like tailor-made.
I mean, they go hard, but you know, hopefully, you know, people got a sense of humor about themselves and they can laugh.
I'd love to have Mary.
Oh, well, she has a sense of humor, though.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's our hope. That's our hope. Yeah, we met one of her deputies at some event, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna walk it right to her. Let me know when you guys are ready." But then again, COVID was like, "Nah, ain't nobody doing nothing."
We got Obama's dog in an episode. We're just trying to reach out.
That's true.
Man, yeah, I remember the Billiken Parade. I was in it twice in my lifetime. But my question is this.
Oh, no, wait. I'm sorry. You got to explain that, bro. So what were you doing in the Bud Billiken Parade?
Well, first I was in the Boy Scouts. And second one, I was in a drum corps. So we were in a drum corps.
So was Diallo.
What drum did you play?
God, what's the name of it?
Quad tones? Tenor?
Yeah. The tenor.
Tenor was a cool drum because you could weigh the mouse like this. Snares had to always be upright. I played the quad toms like that, 4 drum like that.
Yeah. I had fun doing that. But I want to ask you guys this question: how did you get these stars like Mario Van Peebles and John Legend and Jamel Hill, who I hadn't seen in a long time, to come on the show? And also, how did you explain it to them?
Yeah. You know, it's kind of cool. Like, it ended up being a if you build it, they will come kind of vibe. We did the first season of Sherman Shwocase, and we looked up one day, and somebody was like, yo, Jamel's tweeting about you guys. And I'm like, what? That's incredible, because we love her. And she was a big fan of the show, and she just got it. She got it on every level. And so when it came time to do the Spectacular, we reached out to her. I think we reached out to her through
we reached out through Fonte.
Through Fonte, there it is. But it's one of those things where everybody's kind of like digging in their Rolodex to find people, because one of the ways, for example, we got Neo in the first season was none of the like people we hired and paid money to go get us people really were as successful as the black hairdresser who was like, y'all need Neo? I got Neo's phone number right now.
Yeah.
And she called him and explained the show to him.
Shout out to Pam Farmer.
And she got us Pam Farmer got us a couple people straight up out of her Rolodex. Yeah. So I think that's really what you got to understand, that like
I was like, oh, you know, like this talent scout can't seem to get in touch with Morris.
Can't do
it. She was like, you want to talk to Morris? And that was it.
Got Morris Day. That's right.
Because these people who work behind the scenes, Sarah,
oh my God,
everybody.
They're the gatekeepers. Nobody knows this, but they really do have, because they create such a beautiful rapport with people as they work with them on movies and film, and they end up becoming people you end up like confiding in. And so, you know, actually, what was funny is we lost Pam to John Legend, didn't we? I just realized that. We had her.
No, we didn't lose her.
But she's working with John. Well, I mean, John works with us too, so I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here.
I love the role that Jamel Hill comes into play, because we really do see Sherman Shwocase as kind of like the Muppet Show with black people.
True.
I always like that character, Sam the Eagle, because he did not like the Muppet Show. Like, he would always come on and rag on the Muppet Show. So I was like, Jamel, can you just be the person who comes on Sherman Shwocase who does not like Sherman Shwocase?
And she calls it buffoonery.
She's like, I know y'all are used to the wanton buffoonery that this show usually. Like, we just have a lot of fun with everybody
Yeah.
who comes through.
And,
Like,
and
yeah.
And also, I would just say really quickly, a lot of talent never get to be funny, or they get to be funny in ways that's making fun of them. And, you know, we come from writer rooms where that did happen, but none of our stuff is like that. We want people who come to our shows to know that not only are you going to get to be funny, but you're going to be protected. We're not going to be making jokes about you. You're going to be in on the joke. And so you have a lot of people we reached out to, like with Mario, for example, he was just like dying to do some comedy because he doesn't really get to do comedy ever. You know, I mean, his movies are beautiful. They're not comedies. And so he came on and he did both the Sherman season, regular season, and he did the spectacular, and he wants to come back and do more. And I'm like, we love stuff like that. We love it when people show up. I mean, Michael Ealy is somebody who, again, doesn't, you know, I think he's doing the ABC show, but he happened to be shooting on the same studio where we were shooting Shermans. And I think Mike Jackson, one of our producers, knows him. It was like, you know, Ealy loves you guys. We're like, all right, well, what's he doing right now? And so we definitely have this open door policy. Laurel Howery, another Chicagoan who we had known because we had worked with him on some award shows, he saw Diallo's Instagram and he hit Diallo up like, yo, man, that looks fun. What are y'all doing? And Diallo's
like, where are y'all shooting that? Y'all in Glendale? And I was like, yeah, come on through. Shoot with you.
Come on through. That's our whole vibe at Sherman Showcase. Come on through.
Put a costume on him, and next thing you know, it's me, him, and Mario Van Peebles in the scene.
Vanessa.
So, yeah.
Yep. We'll write something for him.
Yep.
Wow, that's really great. And like I say, funny show. I can't wait to see the rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys sort of look at yourselves as being trailblazers for this new way of looking at Black comedy? I think, Bashir, you said it best, that we're not a monolith, that we're not just this one way of doing Black comedy, but there's so many different ways that we can tell our story through comedy. And the fact that this is coming out during a time where we're stuck at home, tensions are really, really high, and we're trying to get people to look at us differently from all aspects, from the political, from the social, from the entertainment. I mean, Broadway just released a letter last week about, you know, complaining about the systemic racism off and on Broadway. And so what I feel like you guys are doing is almost being trailblazers, or in a sense, opening another door that has not been there. Do you guys look at yourselves as that, or do you see this moment that you're kind of having?
I don't want us to be trailblazers. Can I be honest? Like, I want Hollywood to just open the doors and let a whole bunch of people in, and because one thing about Black people is that our culture dominates whenever it's given the chance.
That's right. In a fair competition, there's no competition.
No, there's no competition. And I really like the fact that, you know, we're really good friends with Rob and Thede. In fact, our very first sketch group that we ever did was kind of star-studded in the sense that, like, nobody had ever done anything, but everybody's gone on to do great things since. It was me, Bashir, Nefertari Spencer, Robin Thede, Angela Yarborough, and Wyatt Cenac. Like, that was our core six sketch group, and that was back in 2005, and like literally nobody had done
Nika
anything.
King.
To this day. Nika King, who's you know, blowing up on Euphoria on HBO. The reason I bring all that up is just to say that I love the fact that you can have Shermans making the jokes it makes. You can have Thede's Black Lady Sketch Show doing all the memes. Like the other day when we had all the Black mayors, all the Black female mayors on TV, a couple of people kept sending me that gif of a Black Lady Courtroom, which is one of my favorite sketches of all time from somebody else's show. I like the fact that, yes, you know, like everybody can do the show that they want to do and not have to take on the added responsibility of trying to pretend like they're the show for every Black person under the sun. I think that it's.
But I will also, you know, I really think that I'm going to try to be optimistic about it, but I'm going to wait and see, because I think the proof is in the pudding. Because at its core, you know, two things. Number one, I love Netflix, even though I'm not on it. I love it because they don't have a limited number of programming slots. And so a lot more diverse types of Black voices can make it on Netflix than anywhere else, right? Anywhere else, you know, if you're on network TV, if you're on cable, not only do you have to be somebody who can kind of get through all the different levels and ranks of approvals, but then you have to essentially be subject to the programming, right? The programming department comes on and says, well, we don't think that these people watch TV at this time, and we don't think those people watch TV at that time. And there are shows that could thrive, but the programming departments have been like, well, we just don't know when anybody would watch this or what they would watch. And so for me, when I say the proof is in the pudding, I think that's the thing that I would like to see altered in terms of like, if we can help push that, that's great. I see a lot of other great Black shows pushing it too. But the people who make the decisions about what gets on TV, that is really, those are the ultimate gatekeepers, and those are the people who need to look at themselves and figure out why they're not letting certain things on. What do you say, D?
I was saying you and I, we've pitched a lot of TV shows. We've never pitched them to a Black person.
I have literally never had one Black person be able to greenlight one of my projects.
Yep.
And so ultimately, I know that everybody, especially in Hollywood, let's be real, Hollywood loves to send out the lip servicey tweet of support. The question for me becomes, when that moment passes, because all things in life pass, and you're back in your office and you're presented with these projects, what will you do? How will you respond? Because that, then we'll see if there really has been a pushing of things kind of to where they need to be. Because this, I mean, Diallo and I definitely feel fortunate to be able to do what we do, but we love meeting young writers. We meet so many great young writers with great ideas, and then to watch them go out and pitch their stuff and to see them kind of hit with the same kind of headwinds we got hit with. You know, I do think that ultimately goes back to who's making decisions about what goes on television and what gets made into a movie.
Guys, Ray kind of like opened the door to the question that I had. As you know, there's been a lot of talks about what your writer's room looks like. You hit the nail on the head. Who greenlights projects? What does the production crew look like? And how much, and then there's also been a lot of truth-telling, people who've come from Second City and all these other types of things, saying that even in spaces that are supposed to be safe havens for creatives, there's still like, we are only allowed to do this because the audience is palatable.
That's how Bashir and I met. I hear your question, but this is exactly how Bashir and I met, because we went to
not how we met, how we ended up working together.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. It's not how we met. We met in college. We were both in LA doing some acting, but we were members of different sketch groups. Yep. This is before we had the sketch group at Robin and Wyatt. And in my sketch group, I felt like I was always playing like the co-pilot. Like I couldn't play the pilot. I had to play the co-pilot. I had to play the guy next to the guy. And in Bashir's group, he said he always played the chef. Like, you know, he always like, we never got to play like the characters we wanted to play. So when we were talking about this, and by the way, these were groups that like didn't, you know, in some cases, I think in Bashir's case, they were literally performing in like a parking lot, and yet he still couldn't play the role he wanted to play. So one of the reasons that we came together as a team creatively was because we wanted to create a space where the black actor wasn't playing the chef, the co-pilot, the best friend. We wanted to play like, you know, the damn Indiana Jones character, like the person damn near center stage. You know, that was always really important to us.
It's interesting that, go ahead.
No, sorry. I guess my question really is, do you feel like when you pitch these shows, right, it's not just important to being greenlit that these quote unquote gatekeepers underestimate the audience? Because as you stated, Diallo, everybody loves Black culture. Mm-hmm. Why is it then, if we know the general public consumes Black culture so much, why is it then when you're saying, hey, we're not just these types of people, there's nerdy people and there are people who like this type of humor, and we can make fun of ourselves without being tragic and you know, everything's going wrong. Why is it that gets lost in the sauce? Do you know what I mean? Because you can have the hardest rapper and the people who are buying the product aren't from that community, but when it comes to comedy, they're like, well, that's not Black enough, or it's too Black.
Totally. I think, look, I think that that's a very tough question in the sense that it is, for me in my brain, it is an accumulation of different forces. I mean, you both have the people like us started out where we started out, doing sketch comedy when they didn't have any power and sort of believing that Hollywood worked a certain way. And then when they finally did get power, continuing to believe that it worked a certain way and then adhering to that, right? Which is not helpful and it doesn't push the ball forward. You also have the people who only want you to do what has made money before. So if you bring them a new type of idea or a new type of Black idea, if it doesn't look like anything that's happened before on television that made money, they don't even want to see it. And they ground it in their brains, not in being racist, but in being like, well, it's just that is not proven that it can make money. That is not proven that it can move the ball forward. And yet we all know that oftentimes the thing that ends up blowing people away, much like Jordan's film Get Out, is that thing that doesn't look like anything else before it, that somehow makes it through the system and pushes past those doors, right? So you have to have both really, really hard-working and aggressive people on the creative side who are willing to fight to the death for their projects. And to be fair, whether you have any kind of project, black or white, you're going to have to fight to the death for it, like to make a movie, et cetera. But you need people on the creative side who are willing to fight to death, but also, as Diallo just said, and we mentioned this in an interview we did about the thing with Quayle, Diallo, that was about, what, 10, 12 years ago?
A long time.
You still feel like, for example, you need people who are on the other side who are black folks. And not just blacks, but but everybody who represents different parts of this American quilt. But you need people on the green lighting side who can understand you a little better. Here's how that's helped us specifically. Our executive at Comedy Central, our main executive, was a guy named Kellen Parker, who's a black guy. It is much easier for us to tell him stuff and then have him translate it to his coworkers than it was when we were at other places, where we were the ones. And then whenever we would leave the room, because, once you leave the room, they have the real discussion. But when that real discussion is happening, if there's nobody in there who can translate, like we tell this story all the time because it's true. Whether you're from Chicago or Atlanta, that there's a mall that all the black folks go to, right? Or there's usually one or two. And that malls, and oftentimes it's seen better days. Like I know Evergreen Plaza has seen better days. And so Diallo and I wrote this whole episode for our HBO, back when we had our HBO pilot, because they wanted us to write the season and they greenlit the season before they killed it. But we wrote this whole episode. It was like, it's a bottle episode and it all takes place in a black mall, right? It's a black mall, blah, blah, blah. And I forget, what's the name of the one? Is in LA, Greenbrier, right?
Greenbrier Mall.
Greenbrier Mall. So it was like,
that was my mall growing up.
Right. So here's the illest part, right? We thought that the issue that the network would have would be with the specifics of the storytelling. Did we make it clear enough why the characters move the way they move and what their motivations were? The phone call we got that was full of anger was, guys, we told you we wanted a grounded show where you don't make stuff up. Is there really such a thing as a black mall? That's the argument we had to have. So if that argument is happening behind closed doors, what hope is there for you to get your project through, right? You have to have somebody in that room who goes, no, guys, I'm from LA. There's one right down. It's called what's it called? The Crenshaw Baldwin Hills Mall. It's a real thing. But imagine all those hundreds of millions of hours in these small rooms where these decisions are being made, where nobody can speak up and say the black mall is a real thing. Right? So that's what I mean. I think it's a multi-pronged thing where we have to have more aggressiveness on our side, and then we got to have people who are on their side who understand it and do those jobs and can help open some of those doors. And again, I will say that's one of the reasons that I'm a big fan of the way that Tyler Perry does his projects, because he has eliminated the need for somebody above him to greenlight his stuff. And I think that's incredible. I feel like it is such a wonderful, powerful thing to have, to be able to call the network and be like, by the way, I'm going to give you 100 episodes. This is what it's going to look like. We don't all have that kind of power, right? A lot of us want it, but that is an incredible amount of power, because most of us have to call them and say, hey, can you please air this? And that's a different conversation.
This is Al again. That's very thought-provoking. My last question is this. You're going to premiere your show on IFC on June 19th, June 10th. Does that feel special to you too, Bashir and Diallo? Is that special to you?
I'm going to say this answers your question, but it also goes to Bashir's last point. There are times when there are white executives who you can, I will say, trust to go to bat for you. We actually did Sherman Shwocase at IFC.
True.
And now it's at IFC and AMC, because there was a certain white exec there who knew our work from Fallon. And I know for a fact he fought many a hard fight on our behalf in terms of get these guys what they want, get them as much money as we can get. And we didn't get a lot of money, but they were like, give them as much money.
As much money is very relative. It's a relative term.
Yeah, it's relative terms. We didn't get them Kenya Barris dollars, but we got something.
Shout out Kenya. We love you. Please hire us.
We love you, Kenya. We want to work with you. We want that one day. But to your point, we didn't ask for Juneteenth. We got Juneteenth. We were very happy to get Juneteenth. And there was actually a part of me, because, I actually grew up in a household where we did know what Juneteenth was from an early age. I was like, at the time that we got Juneteenth, I was like, is that weird? Like, is that a day of serious reflection? And, but I'm happy that we have Juneteenth. In fact, I want our show to be what people do at the end of their day on Juneteenth, because
with their families. That would be really great.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
after a day of healthy reflection and you know, putting in the hard work that all of us have to do, it's good to. And I always say it's best to go to sleep on a light note. It's best you get your best rest when you go to sleep laughing. You know, I'm a person who actually talks in his sleep. You know, my wife says sometimes like, "Oh, you were laughing last night." So, you know, I want to send people to bed knowing that, hey, you know, despite everything going on in the world, you're not alone. There are wonderful, beautiful Black people all around you, and we are living life together. And if we can be a part of that Juneteenth celebration for everybody, then it's a great thing. We didn't choose Juneteenth, but we're happy to have it. That's what I'd say.
Thanks so much, guys. You were really, really terrific. And I am certainly looking forward to seeing more of your work.
Thank you so much.
You know, so on behalf of the largest group of Black critics, entertainment critics in the country, we'd like to thank you, and we look forward to seeing more of you. We look forward to celebrating and uplifting your vision, because it's of us, because it's about us. And so we'd like to thank you for your efforts, and you guys stay safe out there.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
Thank you, guys.